Thank you so much for joining us today. So the aim of this session at Oxford Rural Farming Conference is to present some of the work of the European coordination of the Via Campesina's Migration and Rural Working Group. This working group is made up of agricultural workers unions, which are based in Europe and North Africa, and as well as their supporters in countries which import produce from these countries. The relationship that a lot of these countries have with supermarkets in Northern European countries like the UK, France, and Germany is one that's very extractive and exploitative. And the aim of our group is to build solidarity between unions and Laurent, if you could stop sharing your screen for a moment just before your presentation starts.
You want to start with Eurosol?
Yeah, I want to start with Eurosol, but we'll keep it up then, and then we can because we'll just move on to your presentation shortly. So the first, so what we're doing with this session is we're going to present two cases of labor disputes and worker exploitation in two companies. One being Eurosol in Almería in Spain, and the other being Azora in Morocco. And so our speakers today are Laurent Vonwiller. Laurent, who is based in Switzerland and a member of Unitaire, which is La Via Campesina Siliet in Switzerland, a small farmers union there. And we're also joined by Mohammed Haekch, who is the General Secretary of the FNSA Agricultural Workers Union in Morocco. So first of all, if we could hear from Laurent about the case at Eurosol, that would be great. Thank you. Take it away, Laurent.
Okay, just one question. You see the presentation on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe I will introduce myself in a few words. I am an agronomist, a Swiss agronomist, and I'm busy with sustainability issues since a lot of time. I think social responsibility is a very important subject. I'm a member of Unitaire. Unitaire was originally an association, a trade union of farmers, but they opened to consumers and other people, but the majority of Unitaire are farmers wishing a radical change in agriculture toward agroecology and agriculture with less inputs and more sustainability. And Unitaire is member of La Via Campesina. La Via Campesina is trying to coordinate a lot of things in Europe. And we have formed a commercial pressure group, as Catherine said, which tries to gather information essentially now in Spain and in Morocco. Later, we will have also to integrate Italy, France, because there are plenty places where there are a lot of problems with workers. Those who are providing the food are working at very cheap conditions, bad conditions. Precarity is always here. You work today, but you never know if you will be working tomorrow. And I think we will hear after from Mohammed the case of Azora. There's a strong conflict ongoing there, and it's very important to support the workers there in Morocco. Now, what I will present is a case in Spain. The company is called Eurosol, and it's a case of open violation of labor rights against the Spanish law, against the agreement. There's a labor agreement in the province of Almería. Almería is a hotspot in intensive agriculture and in a long tradition of violation of human rights. In this case, Eurosol, you will see they really did things you would think it's not possible. And the question is, what do we do to maintain precarious conditions in farms? Yes, well, this is agroecological. It was another presentation, excuse me. Now, I don't see everything. Okay, the case is, look at my papers. Eurosol has a farm. Eurosol is a huge group, but on one farm, there were 50 workers were working, mostly from Ukraine and Romania, from Eastern countries for a long time. And they had elected a committee, a workers' committee, like it is in the Spanish right. You have the right to elect a workers' committee to represent yourself against the management. And the 50 workers, last end of the, maybe I have to explain that you in Spain, you or in Mediterranean area, you mostly work in the winter because you're providing vegetables which are not growing neither in Britain or in Germany, nor in Switzerland, or in France. In the winter, you have tomatoes, you have cucumbers, you have everything growing in the winter, and the season goes up to May, June. In June, you take the plants away and to prepare everything. Then you go to holiday and you come back in September. And the 50 workers there, they saw in May 50 new workers arriving. In fact, the workers were most from Eastern Europe, but the 50 new workers were for Africa. Are hired, and they wondered why do they hire 50 workers more? And it was a change. The management just wanted to change the workforce, partly at least, because they didn't like that the workers had chosen a committee to represent them. And then the trade union and the members of the workers' committee went to the management and said, hey, could we have a look at the contracts of the new workers? And the management refused to show the contracts, and you can guess why, because probably we never saw the contract. Nobody saw the contract, but you can guess it was, they were not conform with the Spanish law and with the local agreement on working conditions, convenio colectivo de Almería, de agricultura. So,
Laurent, sorry, the interpreters are requesting that you speak French. Is that okay?
Ah bon, d'accord. Alors, je vais parler français, ouais. Donc,
okay, yes, so I'll speak in French. So we wanted to so there was a clear clash in terms of the collective bargaining that had been reached in Almería. Now, at the end of last season, there were very difficult negotiations that took place, and regarding some clauses of the contract said that when the workers go on holiday, they are paid full salary, but the company did not want to pay this full salary. Furthermore, people, according to Spanish law, had the right to more benefits, but they were not allowed their morning break. So this meant that the negotiations did not reach a positive end, and the trade union brought this case to the social court of Almería, and at that point a sentence was ruled saying that holiday pay had to be paid in full, and that this morning break was also necessary because that was part of the collective agreement with the Almería authorities. And they said that in 2015 this would come to an end, and then it was never renewed with the traditional trade union and the Employers Federation. It was not renewed because the Employers Federation did not want to renew it, but on a legal level, the collective agreement continues to be applied. It's still in force. So this means that lawyers based themselves on this collective agreement from 2015 to reach the judgment of this court case. And in most of the farms, the holiday pay was not paid or not paid in full, and the morning break was not paid either. And they finally did receive official confirmation to say that the aspects included in the collective agreement had to actually be granted to the workers. And then following the break, the African workers were hired right up until the morning break, and I think they did some work. They did a few tasks to clear away the plants that were left over. And then when people came back from holidays, the company fired several workers, including the workers who had been there with several years of experience, and they continued refusing to negotiate with the workers, and they fired several workers, and this created a climate of fear among the workers who had been working for a number of years, actually. And this meant that there were endless maneuvers taking place. So if the management was not happy with you, then management would send you off to do very unpleasant tasks. You wouldn't be able to be with the main team. You would be separated, and you'd have to work alone. So there were several measures to punish the workers that the management were not happy with, even those who had been working for a long time. And then at the end of the season, in the month of May, the manager of the farm organized the African workers and got them to sign a document which requested the abolition of the committee of the workers that the workers had elected 2 or 3 years previously. So the new workers asked for this to be abolished, and there was a long list. If you look at the names, you can see that these are very clearly African names. It's Abubakar or similar names. These are people from Mali, Senegal, and it's very clear that the company got these people together and got them to sign a list saying that they would replace the Works Council, the committee elected by the workers. So this is an attack against the workers, against their right to have a trade union, to have representation through collective bargaining, and to have trade union representation. And this is indeed something which had been agreed. It has been agreed by the ILO, the International Labour Organization. It is enshrined at international level there, also in Spanish law and in the local Almería legislation as well. Following this, the manager of the farm decided to organize a meeting in the month of August, and this was to ask for the workers' committee to be abolished, the committee that the workers had organized. And this failed because there was a majority that would have been needed to do this, and the workers were still there. They then were up to date. They were aware of what was happening. So that's the situation as it stands at the moment. And well, normally what they try to do is that they try to prevent the election of workers in the farm. And the new tactic, on the other hand, is to eliminate the committee organized by SOC-SAT. Now, SOC-SAT is a trade union which tries to protect decent working conditions. And now there are two Spanish trade unions. So there's the official trade union, which is Comisiones Obreras, which is a national trade union. And then there's another one as well. And they haven't done a lot for workers in the fields. These are big trade unions which are led, which work mainly in different areas. And their tactic up until now had to been to eliminate the committees that had been elected because they were under the control of SOC-SAT, and they wanted to have a new trade union committee elected with their own people. So this is the conclusion that had been reached, that we have set up a pressure group which brings together these elements of information, and in England, in the UK, there is work being done with the trade initiative. So this brings together Tesco's, Sainsbury's, and others. And Catherine did this. And we also worked with Germany, the big supermarkets in Switzerland as well. And all of these big distributors, these big supermarkets, have great statements on sustainable development. They all say that they're in favor of sustainable development. They say that they're all in favor of the ILO working conditions, that they're all in favor of corporate social responsibility. But then in their supply chains, often what we see is that there are abuses taking place, as we can see with Eurosol, and then nothing happens. The supermarkets do absolutely nothing. And so we are now calling upon the large supermarkets to pay greater attention to this, to put questions to Eurosol, to bring pressure to bear against them and against other similar companies, asking them not to make use of this type of supply chain and to actually fall in line with the ILO convention and its provisions. So this is what I wanted to say with Eurosol. I'm not really up to date on the most recent developments because clearly the company wants to eliminate the committee and it wants to elect another one with the help of workers. Now, the African workers are clearly not up to date on this, and for them, Europe is a new area that they don't understand. They want to join the workforce, but they find that it's very difficult, and this is a very difficult struggle, a social struggle for them. So that's all I had to say on that. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Laurent. I think this is a clear example of how the lengths even a company which, like Eurosol, which claims to be a sustainable agricultural company, claims to meet all of these international standards, the lengths it will go to dismiss workers who have managed to organize themselves and win certain rights of representation. And it is therefore, if we are to allow these, if we are to keep these rights, if we are to ensure that workers are allowed to organize, we must support each other. We must support these workers in struggle, especially because otherwise we will lose the right to organize. Next, I'd like to call on Mohammed Haekch to talk about a very similar social struggle happening at the moment in Souss Massa in Morocco. This is in a company that's very connected to the United Kingdom, Azura, which exports its vegetables, specifically tomatoes, to Sainsbury's and Tesco. And there is a very, very concerning situation there with a death of a worker just this Sunday in a sit-in at the enterprise. So, Mohammed, if you would like to introduce the topic, that'd be great.
Bon, merci. De toute façon, je suis très, très content d'être parmi vous.
Thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure to be here with you. The work being done, I would say it's very important, and it's we can see that help is efforts are being made to help workers, and the workers are suffering. We have worked with and as you know, that from January there will be 12,000 people who will start working in the Mediterranean and working with Huelva in the south of Spain. And so Morocco is basically a bridge between Africa and Europe. And for this reason, the work with you is of great interest. Now, I have heard that you've asked me to talk about some topics which are very important. Now, firstly, I'd like to present you the region of Souss-Massa, and I'd like to explain why it's so important. Then I would like to explain why so many are attracted to this region. Following that, we will present the way in which Azura is addressing this problem, how it's looking at this problem which has been taking place, and I'd like to explain recent events. And this is being presented to Europe, but not being presented to us. And so we could hear about what the workers are doing and what activities are being led by the trade unions. And then also we can look at other activities, other initiatives that are underway at the moment. So I just wanted to share these aspects with you. So firstly, this region in Morocco is very significant in terms of production for exports, and this region is a huge contributor to national GDP. It contributes 9% of all of the country's GDP. So that's huge. The surface area of this area, the land area, is 400,000 hectares, and 106,000 hectares have very modern equipment for food production. And there have been huge amounts of investment in this area. It is becoming a space for highly industrialized agriculture, and I'm sure you know the repercussions of this and the impact of industrialized agriculture for the environment and also for the water table. The water table, which goes down 80 meters at the moment. Well, it was 80 meters, but now to get water, you have to go down 200 meters underground. And now I have a few figures from recent years, and 82% of exports from Morocco come from Souss-Messa, the Souss-Messa region. So you can see that that's a huge share of exports for the whole country. And most of these exports go straight to Europe. So 87% of the fresh goods go to Europe, and that is why it's so important to talk about these issues. And then as for citrus fruits, 43% of exports of citrus fruits go to Europe. A large amount goes to Russia as well. So these are the figures. This is how important this region is for the capitalist economy. And it's said that this region is a land of excellence for capitalist investment. Now, why is this? Because it is so fertile? Is it because of the sun? Is it because there are low salaries? Is it because there's so much poverty? There's complicity from the authorities because of the tax breaks, because of the ease of transferring money? Well, all of these are aspects which make it so much easier for capitalist companies, and that's why there is so much capitalist investment, and that's why the export empire has been built in this area. And that's why we have these Dutch companies, or plenty of others that I could mention, that have come into the area. And so it is an export empire based in this region of Morocco. Now, let's look at a historic an overview of their history. So this started in the 1990s. We as a trade union were there. We started our work in the area in 2004. So for the working conditions, what we said is that if you read the report from 2009 on sustainable development, so this is really a report of sustainable exploitation from 2009. I'm sorry if I'm maybe using the wrong term here, but I see it more as a sustainable exploitation export rather than a sustainable development report. And so I'd like to just read a few points or tell you what this report says. So it says that Azura, the company, will guarantee the rights of all of its employees, and that there is a code of conduct for all employees that will be respected. But the workers don't actually know about this code of conduct. And it is said that this code of conduct takes inspiration from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Oh, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of the UN. And it brings in commitments for child labor, also guiding principles from the OECD. Oh, excellent. And then we hear about measures and conventions from the International Labour Organization, the ILO, and then it is said that these great guiding principles are there enshrined for all of the workers. And then, as for trade unions, what does it say? Well, it talks about Moroccan law and French law. So even French law is said to work with these principles. So all workers have the right to join a trade union. So that's what it says in writing. It says all trade unions are possible, and workers can join these trade unions. Trade unions are present on 5% of Azura's areas. Now, they say this themselves, that there's only 5% trade union coverage, which is absurd. And when you look at it, there are 47 sites where Azura carries out its work. Now, they're in Ashisha and Dalawa, and on 40 farms, small, well, the minimum surface area for farms is 30 hectares. So they're very large farms, and there are roughly 4,000, 5,000 workers that we're talking about, agricultural workers, and the packaging area alone has 1,500 workers, just the packaging, just so that you can understand how big this operation is. And that's the situation, just to give you an idea. Now, what is the reality on the ground? Well, maybe I didn't introduce myself fully, but I'd just like to say I'm the former Secretary General of the agricultural workers sector in the trade union, and I'm still in charge of international affairs in the Moroccan trade union. So what's been happening? So Azura, since 2004, what we have seen is that a small trade union office has been set up, and they started hassling us in that office. And in 2014, they went much further than that. They started to fire people. They started to dismiss people, even though they were scared slightly of the social repercussions in Europe or the penalties that may come in from Europe. But they did this anyway. They fired people, and they had only 27 sites at the time, but now over the last 7 years, they have doubled their, and there's been a lot of investment from the the Morocco Green Plan. And now, why is it that this has happened? Well, there's this policy of doing away with trade unions. And so the pandemic for Azura was something, it was like manna from heaven. It was an amazing solution for them, because they were able to do whatever they liked. And that's why we saw an explosion of mushrooming of Azura. Why is it that they were able to grow so fast? And why were they able to fire so many people? Well, in June 2020, elections for representatives of staff or the employees were held, and so the workers were able to elect representatives, and Azura was actually it was the company itself who put forward the delegates, the representatives, and they tried to prevent the real trade union representatives coming forward. They did whatever they could to prevent the real representatives of trade unions coming forward, the real representatives of the workers. And that's why they fired a number of people. They got rid of a number of employees. They fired the former representatives of the workers. Now, to fire somebody, to fire a workers' representative, there's supposed to be an agreement with the labor inspector. That is in accordance with Moroccan law, but they did not do this. They just fired people. They dismissed people as they wished. And what did Azura do? Well, in order to put an end to the trade unions, they developed their policies further, their policies for eradicating trade unions. And there was forced labor, there was isolation of certain workers, and some workers were put into quarantine. And the non-trade unionized workers could take breaks whenever they like. so the non-trade union workers, the non-unionized workers received bonuses and advantages, but those who signed up to a trade union received nothing. They received no benefits. And there is no director of human resources at the moment. There's just somebody that the company's put in the role, and they also have militia. I'm really saying that word. I'm saying that quite clearly, that they attack people, they attack workers. They have armed people, armed militia who come in and threaten and harass and attack people so that they leave, and they have, well, every now and then there are percentages that need to be met, there are targets, and they threaten those who don't reach those targets. And then all of this, well, these are conditions that have pushed workers to raise their voices. They are holding sit-ins and demonstrations. Well, sometimes it seems that people know about this, but actually they don't. And so awareness needs to be raised. Now, following the tragic event of the death, there was an accident of in Nulamati and Tinsaba, and this meant that there was outrage among workers. And what happened was that Azura now is terrified. The company is scared. And following the burial of Ansaba, the administrative authorities came in. They contacted the mother and the father of the deceased person, and they offered them 6,500 euros. And we saw that this was a good indicator. You said, well, why are you coming in to give us money? Because it seemed that the person had been killed by an accident. But this is just a sign that really that there is real responsibility, there is real liability here. And they said, the company said, no, don't speak to us, go and speak to the trade union, it's not our fault. And now there's the stick and the carrot, of course, at 3 in the morning, after the burial, after the funeral, after giving money to the family, at 3 in the morning, they used their own militiamen, their own armed people, to pour cold water over the workers who were sleeping in this sit-in. And so think of this awful situation. Now, there's all this talk of human rights and these wonderful words, but then we see that this is what happens. Now, Azura can imagine if you send a journalist to go and actually see what's happening there with this company. It terrifies them, and they say, well, we could have a journalist coming in from Europe to actually look at what is happening. This is what we've been asking for. We've been asking for them to let journalists in. Well, now what we see happening is, well, Via Campesina is working on this a huge amount. We're looking at the multinationals, the transnationals, and the work that they are doing. They have called upon the service of G4S, this private company from the UK. Now, G4S is normally there for providing transport services or for providing guards or protection, but they're not there to harass workers. They shouldn't be, at least. And we had G4S coming in, and someone has to say something to G4S. It's absolutely awful what they have been doing. Now they came in to disperse this sit-in. Now, what have we been trying to do recently? Well, the situation is that we have been trying to keep this sit-in going. We wanted to keep the protest going. Azura tried to disperse everybody. They tried to get rid of people because they find it embarrassing, they find it bothersome, and international attention there must be international attention here. And so that's the situation. I hope I haven't forgotten anything. If there's any other questions, then please let us know. Now, the current situation is that there is resistance from workers. They don't want to leave. They're putting up resistance there. And now there are a lot of workers who are coming in from elsewhere, who are trying to show solidarity, trying to defend these workers in this region. And we're going to try to also bring pressure to bear so as to ensure that the authorities understand this situation. The situation is serious, and people are allowed to do what they want. The company accumulates millions in profit, and I saw figures recently about the thousands or millions in profit that the companies earn, and it's just a small number of farms, but they are earning money off of the workers, really, and they're suffering. That's what is happening. I apologize if I'm a bit agitated and emotional in my words, but I can't. That's the only way I can express myself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohammed, for that update on an extremely important social struggle going on at the moment. This is sit-ins have been happening outside Azura's HQ in Ait Baha since, I think, the 8th of December, when union representatives were dismissed from the Marissa 9 farm. And it's the way that these workers have been treated is appalling. And again, this is for produce that is sold and bought in the UK. You will notice when you go into supermarkets in the UK more and more that you are seeing more and more produce from Morocco. There has been a new association agreement agreed very recently, just in the last month, between the UK and Morocco. The UK hosted the Moroccan foreign minister just here last month. And this is the reality of the produce that we see in our supermarkets. This is the conditions for the people that spend their lives producing that food. And the result is, because of the way Azura has acted, that a young worker of 30 years old who leaves behind 4 children has been killed. I'm very pleased to hear that there has been at least some compensation paid.
Tu peux laisser Laurent me dire quelque chose, me traduire un peu.
Maybe Laurent could translate a little bit what has been said there.
Oh, yeah.
Les petits éléments les plus importants. Tu allumes, Laurent, allume ton micro. Allume ton micro.
Voilà. Il est un peu revenu sur la situation.
Tu me dis un peu ce qu'il a dit.
Et je pense qu'il a
dit
surtout...
seulement.
Tu m'entends? Il a surtout rendu les gens...
Yes, he was just summarizing some of what you said. So, and he was adding some more information about the reaction in the UK and the boycotting of products in the UK. And really, it's a call for consumers. It's asking consumers to understand what goes on in the background in the production of the fruit and vegetables that they eat. So I think that's most of what he was saying just now.
Il y a un accord particulier après le Brexit. Après le Brexit, il y a un accord particulier.
And then he said that following Brexit, there's an agreement between Morocco and the UK, and now exports from Morocco to the UK have increased because of the difficulties with the EU. I think that's what was also said. Can I just add one thing? Says Mohammed. So the 40th day, on the 40th day, we're going to have a big meeting at the home of the victim. We're going to have a gathering, a large gathering, and if any of you are able to help us or to be there, the 40th day since this happened, we will be holding this event at the home of the victim. And so I hope that that's clear. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to open up to sort of questions and comments. So if any audience members have anything they'd like to raise, anything they'd like addressed, if you could post it in the Q&A, that would be great, and then we can address it. If everyone's satisfied, then I have some points I can raise as well. Yeah. Thank you very much, Brigitte. I'm just going to comment briefly on things that we intend to do about these social struggles in the UK. As Laurent mentioned, there is a framework in the UK called the Ethical Trading Initiative, which brings together supermarkets and trade unions and NGOs, seeking to ensure that international labour organization standards are upheld within supply chains. There is a whistleblower system, and we are compiling all the information and statements that the FNSA has released on this issue to provide to send to UK supermarkets, to encourage them to sanction Azura until this situation is resolved, because this is as has been, I don't know whether it's been explained, the dismissal of trade union representatives at this farm is illegal. It has not been signed off by the Moroccan Labour Inspectorate. It is not legally valid, and so therefore it is what we are seeing here is UK supermarkets, by continuing to support and buy from Azura at the moment, are supporting breaches of Moroccan labour law. They are benefiting from illegal practices. So and additionally as well, we are going to try and send our own donations of money to the family of Dina Sabah, the killed worker, to ensure that her children are provided for. I'm really pleased to hear that Azura has paid some compensation. Laurent, could you ask Mohammed whether is it Azura who have paid compensation to the family? Yes. Is that?
J'ai pas.
Il a demandé si c'est Azura qui a payé la compensation, mais oui, yes, Azura paid. C'est Azura qui a payé.
Non, mais de toute façon, on est maintenant dans une discussion. Azura.
Well, now we have discussions underway. Azura came to the family, and they offered their condolences, but there's a big discussion now. They're saying, is it a labor accident, an accident at the workplace, or was it a road accident? And there's a big debate about that. There's an argument over that. So was he actually working, or was he just on the side of the road, or was it a road accident? And so if it's a road accident, how much needs to be paid? If it's a workplace accident, how much needs to be paid? And we're talking to the police as well, and they should at least have a conscience. Regardless of how much they pay, they should have a conscience of the impact on the family. And there are lots of questions that need to be asked, and we can update you at a later stage. Thanks.
National d'assurance, hein?
So there's the National Insurance Scheme, the C and the National Social Security. So that's what the pension system basically in Morocco.
Right, I see. Thanks.
D'accord.
Okay, great. Are there any questions from the audience? That is the in the background of Mohammed. That is the killed worker and her family. I think it is ridiculous to say that this is a traffic accident when, for one thing, Azura made it so workers could not assemble outside the gates in a safe manner. The gates go past, are just next to a very, very busy highway. And they parked cars in front of the gates to prevent workers from, assembling safely. So the idea that it could be just a car accident, and also, these protests would not even be happening if they reinstated the sacked workers and respected the agreements that they have with FNSA. I've just seen there is a question. Okay, from Becky Grove. So this is a question for yours. So everyday people in the UK in general seem to not have any awareness of these heartbreaking issues. And there's such little connection to food other than the supermarkets. So how can we put more of a spotlight on workers' issues in agriculture in the UK and Europe? I was wondering whether Laurent, do you have any?
Laurent.
Yeah.
Laurent, qu'est-ce que vous faites? Et vous avez parlé des certificateurs de
So
Azura.
you spoke about the certification for Azura, is that right?
French?
Yeah.
Donc Mohammed vient de parler des certificateurs.
So Mohammed has just talked about certification. Now, Azura is indeed certified, and it has certification for good standards, for social responsibility and other things. And then there's a British body from the ETI, which confirms the good conduct of a company, and they provide certification. So I know that ETI, well, there's a ETI whistleblower or something along those lines, and I think in the UK it will be really useful if we could approach ETI through the whistleblower channel, and we could ask for an intervention to take place. We could say, what does the audit actually say? What does it actually say here? I think that there are 30 farms in Agadir. There are different farms in Shishawa as well. And so when they carry out audits for this certification, they cannot just look, they cannot possibly look at all 30 farms. They can't assess all of the farms. Maybe they just do 5 or 6 of them. So they can't see all of what's happening. And even when the social auditors come in, there are some of them who see some things, but they turn a blind eye to other things, or maybe things are hidden from them, or workers, the only workers that come forward to speak are those that are in agreement with the company, and so you don't hear any critical voices. And so it will be really interesting to approach ETI and understand more about this audit, and we could speak to the auditors, understand what has actually been done and said, and how this has taken place. And now in the UK, you have something that we don't have in Germany, France, or Switzerland. You have ETI, and you don't just have large retailers involved, but you also have trade unions and NGOs involved in ETI, and that means that there are many other possibilities for bringing pressure to bear. I think this is quite significant. And then certifiers, ETI and others, there's well, you can see in the shops, if you go, well, you can see the Azura label in supermarkets, and it says 0 residues or 0 waste, and so you can see that those labels by Azura, and then you can call up the consumer services, and that actually can cause a lot of pressure. They feel the pressure. If you just write a letter and say, we have seen this, well, that actually does have some pressure, and they don't like that. They don't like it when consumers raise awareness. They want all consumers to be positive and to love them and everything, and they want to speak about sustainable development goals and say that everything is wonderful, but then they feel very uncomfortable when we actually raise awareness on these more delicate issues. And so we try to do this. We try to shake things up a bit and make people aware of what's happening. And in Switzerland, well, they give us some answers. They try to tell half the truth when they give us some answers. But I think really we need to use these channels, these instruments that exist, so that we can raise awareness.
I think,
Laurent, est-ce que c'est possible que nous, ou surtout les ouvrières,
would it be possible if we, or the workers at least, can share information with you that you can then send to Carrefour or Tesco's or Sainsbury's? We can send you a letter from the workers explaining their suffering, and we can sign it as well. We can have the workers signing it saying this is what is happening.
Yes, that would be brilliant. Yes.
Yeah.
Et puis vous allez l'envoyer parce que moi, pourquoi je vous dis ça? Parce que je l'ai fait, moi.
Now, why am I saying this? Well, because we had a big battle with a flour producer in Morocco, and I sent a letter to Carrefour, the big French supermarket, and we said that you may give a flour to your grandmother who is ill, or maybe a flour for your wife or your girlfriend, but look at what's happening behind the scenes to produce this flour. And they actually took note of this letter, and we saw a reaction in Paris. We saw people reacting to it. So this is something we could do as well with Azura. We could to have some kind of letter like that.
I think that would be a brilliant idea as well. I think when it comes to sort of like building awareness for consumers in the UK, I think often there's a lot of cynicism, like, oh, there's not, even if people are aware that exploitation is happening, they don't feel that there's anything that can be done about it. But that is not true. People in the UK are very, very powerful on this. We as citizens of a first world country have more power than we really think that that we're aware of. We can really affect changes in other parts of the world if we are concerted on this. So I think it is a case of organizations like the Land Workers Alliance doing the work on this, but sort of compiling the evidence of what's happening, disseminating it along its networks, and providing consumers with a way that they can place pressure on the supermarkets. And one way of doing this is through contacting initiatives like the Ethical Trading Initiative. Another way of it is writing to the supermarkets. And I think by doing the work around this, by providing consumers with a way to do this, like model letters for consumers to fill in, to send to supermarkets, we can affect some change. And as well, I think as what we are coming to realize here, and this is me just talking about the UK now, is that we have quite a shortage of agricultural workers at the moment because workers are not coming here because the conditions are bad, and we've just voted to leave the European Union, making it harder for them to come. We are suddenly realizing now that the people that pick our vegetables are people that they are people who will not come if they are not treated correctly. And I think that awareness is going to, as prices rise and we see shortages, that's going to become even deeper. And I think as well, like I think as Becky says, like a campaign that is able to humanize people and I think that this letter that Mohammed suggests from the workers to the UK supermarkets, I think is a very powerful tool. It's, you know, especially signed by the workers saying that, you know, this is what our conditions are and we deplore them. I think it's going to be very, very difficult for them to counter that. Okay, I'm just aware a little bit of the time. We have about 2 minutes left before we must leave. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Laurent and Mohammed. That was a wonderful meeting. I really appreciate all of the contributions you made. I also want to say a really huge thank you to Joe, our interpreter, who was not expecting to speak French. He was expecting to speak Spanish. So thank you so much for stepping in the last minute. You did an amazing job. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right.
Thank you all for you.
Thanks for you. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right.
We'll see you all later. Goodbye.
Bye. See you.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Bye. Goodbye.